see it when you came in, and this is your first time to Demopolis, I put you a little flyer out there that gives you some options for lunch when you leave here today. But again, just welcome. We're glad you're here. And I'm going to turn it over to Dana Williams and Nicole to help us learn
Actually,
about
I'm either Dana or Nicole. Good morning, everyone. I am Joe Garner. I'm the coordinator for the Office of School Improvement. And welcome to Demopolis. This is my first time, well, my second time at Demopolis, my first time here. And thank you for allowing us the opportunity to visit with you and spend some time with you this morning. First, we introduce Dr. Nicole. She is with COGNET, Dr. Danny Williams, Federal Programs, and Dr. Landon Hawkins with Federal Programs as well. Our session today is planning with purpose, because school improvement does not happen without planning. It doesn't happen by accident with trip, or if it does happen by accident, you're unable to sustain that improvement. And it all begins with that plan, your continuous improvement plan. So today, our goal is to help you feel better about your ACIP when you leave and when you got here. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nicole.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am so excited. I have never been to Demopolis, and this is such a beautiful venue. So if I find that you are just drifting off to the water, it's going to be just fine as long as your ears are open. I'm so glad that you guys are all here, and because it's such a nice venue, who knows, we might dance during the break. It's just feels like we should have a party, doesn't it? So we are here today, and you're probably not going to learn a whole lot that is new, but I want to invite you to think a little bit differently, because no matter what product or tool you use, schools across the country are required to complete an annual improvement plan. You happen to be affiliated with COGNET, so for you, ACIP might stand for aggravating, complicated, and interrupted paperwork, but I want to hopefully help you to change the way you view it, because in my experience as a teacher and administrator, finishing my career in the schools as a principal, you have to do the requirement dance. You have to do it. But if you have to do it, you have to give meaning to it to make it worthwhile. So when principals would tell me as a teacher, we need this from you, and I thought it was superfluous, I would be like, no, why? I don't have time. But then I was like, okay, if I have to do it, how can I make it more meaningful? So that's what I'm inviting you to do today. And I want you to start to think about how it is not something additional that you have to do, that you can embed this work to guide what you already do. And we're going to talk about that throughout the day. So how many of you are school principals? Thank you. Federal programs at the system level. Leadership teams or assistant principals. Any teachers? Thank you. I'm so glad you are on these in these sessions, because you are going to ascribe to leadership, I'm sure, at some point, and you are already, by virtue of being here, a leader at your school. So this work can go on forever. Anybody else that I did not mention? Curriculum coordinator, instructional coaches. Okay. Did I miss anyone? Of the usual people who come? Let's see if it probably went to sleep, but I'm going to come through it. So today we're going to talk a couple of things, and as you know, that all of you guys are accredited. So whenever we do any kind of sessions, we want to remind everyone how our work aligns to what you guys are required to do in terms of standards. That way, when you do go through accreditation, you can say, oh yes, just by virtue of completing an annual improvement plan, we are meeting these standards, because these standards address all of this. And all of this is going to be some of the concepts that we are going to be working on today. All right, so here's what our purpose is today. And I want you to consider, we don't have Wi-Fi right now, they are working on it. If you have a hotspot, feel free to use it. But I'm using my hotspot, and so I want you to consider, if you would feel vulnerable enough at some point today, I want to do some practical application and give all of us the opportunity to provide this brave soul who doesn't mind sharing their plan or pieces of it, so we can consider, does it meet certain things, and we can give feedback to each other. So if that's something you want to do, then I will put it up on the screen. Because we want you to develop well-written critical initiatives that are aligned to an intended outcome and to your key measures. If it's not aligned, you are not going to get quantifiable or verifiable growth that you can share with your school community because it doesn't fit with what you said you were doing. And we want to make sure that all of the pieces of the ACIP align to what you want to do. Okay, apparently I'm having issues. Come on, you. There we go. So Dr. Dana is going to, throughout this thing, we're going to kind of tag team. So Dr. Williams is going to share with you how our product kind of aligns with that requirement and that expectation. So you can make sense of it and see how our tool can be used to meet those requirements. Do I need a mic, first of all? Or can you hear? Because we have one if we need.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I know Dr. Gardner, Joe, he just took inventory. No, Nicole took inventory of the room to see who's here. But I have a couple of questions before I get started. How many of you know or are those principals who plan it is to just meet and greet the problems of the day? You know they exist, and you know you got to deal with it. So my plan is to take care of A, B, C, and D before this parent comes for this meeting, and I got to deal with that. There's a whole other issue, right? How many of you know principals or are those principals whose plan it is just to get through the day? I just need this day to be over with. It's fine, go home. How many of you were or are those principals? I'm not going to be shamed. Me, it was me, but that was until I understood the purpose of my ACIP. When I actually put my ACIP into the planning and the implementation phase, it actually helped me improve my day, and I didn't have to wait for 8th period every day. How many of you, especially our central office people, you have a plan to come in to take care of the tasks, your to-do list, and then, for some strange reason, you are called to a meeting that lasts all day long. Where does your plan go? You don't know where it is. It's not with you, right? It is right. And you think God has forsaken you, right? But he has not. He'll get back to you at 3:30 because he's working with somebody else right now. So the point is you have plans, but if you don't have a structured plan that you can always reference to go back to, you're going to be thrown off constantly, you're going to forget, and your improvement, whether it's in the school or the central office, is not going to take place. So let's talk about what the ACIP is, our Alabama Continuous Improvement Plan. It is a framework to enhance the effectiveness of the strategies and the activities that will be implemented to improve students' academically. It helps you write out your clear goals, develop your benchmarks, and your performance indicators, right? It also is a place where you can align your funding sources to support all those activities and initiatives that you have planned. It's not, what is not is a one and done thing. It's a living document. So you can continuously change it as you see fit. As you monitor what's happening, your activities, you can change it and make something new work. But the key is you always have to monitor to revise it. It is a plan that is developed annually and regularly has to be monitored.
It's working.
And of course, to begin your ACIP, you have to identify your needs. And therefore, your needs assessment, your comprehensive needs assessment, is the foundation of your ACIP. Because if you don't know what your needs are, you can't make plans and implement activities to improve them. So it's very important that you complete that comprehensive needs assessment. And I don't know if we can say this enough times, but that last bullet is very important. The ACIP is not something that is solely created and implemented by the principal alone. You must have other people, however many people you need, with varied interests, varied perspectives to help you. Because you don't see everything that teachers see. You don't see everything that your secretary sees. You don't see everything the custodian sees. And the custodian knows more than you think he knows, right? Especially about families in the neighborhood. But as Nicole will tell you, if you ask her who should be on your ACIP team, she will say,
Yes.
yep, that's it. Yep, anybody. So please make sure you have somebody with varied interests. And include your community leaders, especially those who are business owners, those of you who are principals of high schools. Why is it important to seek interest from or input from business owners? Because that's where the kids work. And if the business owner is saying these kids are lacking these skills, then you might need to focus on that in the school.
And students, if they're old enough.
Yes, definitely. And so we wanted you to understand that the ACIP is not just something that we have to do in Alabama. It is something that is required by ESSA. And we just wanted you to know that everybody has to do an ACIP. Every school, Title I, CSI, HSI, TSI, non-title, it doesn't matter if it's a school improvement plan has to be in place. So please don't think school improvement plans or ACIPs are just for those schools who are at the bottom 5%. It is for everybody because there's a need to improve some way.
So in addition to what Dr. Williams just described, the framework that the ACIP is, we did conduct our own study, and the summary of the study is on our website at cognitive.org, but we did an ESSA study that if you implement an improvement plan with fidelity, there are direct correlations and positive outcomes for students. Just so you know that. So it became, it's ranked as promising evidence for ESSA. So if you, because what we do at Cognitive is we want to partner with people. We don't tell people what to do. We're not affiliated with the state or federal government, although we have to be cognizant of those guidelines. We want to help schools improve. For one reason. And what is that? Our students. We want them to be prepared for their future. We want them to be prepared in the way that's best for each individual student. But if you implement what research also says, not just our research, in addition to the intended outcomes you achieve because they're on your plan, there are some secondary benefits and impacts to implementing a well-crafted and designed improvement plan. You would have improved culture. This is what broader research tells you. You will have responsive leaders versus reactive leaders. You will have stakeholder, and I'm not going to use the word buy-in anymore. I think I'm going to change this slide. I can call people and say no more, because Calandra said something yesterday. It's not enough to have buy-in. That's convincing someone else to do something. It's about ownership. So we don't want buy-in, we want ownership of every single person. If you have a team, and you do, your team is everyone that's at your school that helps things to move forward, including the students, the parents, the community, the teachers. So you have to get your team to find from their perspective how they will own growth and improvement. Everyone has different roles. You don't have a tight end do what a receiver does. You don't have the person hiking the ball, the center, I had to think of the word, do what the quarterback does. Everybody has a specific role to move forward to the touchdown. You also have students who are more prepared because you are identifying not just those academic needs. And I want you to think for a second. How many of us have academic critical initiatives almost solely? We want to improve math or reading or something like that. Because that's how you're assessed, right? That's how you're evaluated by the state. But that's not enough. Because just looking at student performance data does not explain why students are performing the way they are. There's lots of external factors that affect what happens in a classroom. So when we look at multiple sources of data, we start to realize that we can address, I'm not going to say fix, some of those things, and students are more likely to perform because of it. So all of these are additional impacts and reasons why we should do this with more meaning and with more function. I will tell you in our experience, and not just to brag, I've been part of the it was Sachs Casey in 1996 when I started all of this as a volunteer. I wanted to learn what makes schools work. And with 130 years of experience, we have data that shows that these kinds of things happen, then you see more market growth. Every school might improve, well, almost every school, if they do something. But the ones who do something with fidelity and more meaningful and make those connections throughout their school operations are more likely to see much more than none. So let's talk about the strategies module. Now, I was going to do a demo, and I was going to have you guys come in here, and I am going to do the demo. But if you don't have a hotspot, you may not be able to do it right now. But I want to show you some of the elements in our platform that can work to your benefit right now. So if you have access, there's some things I want to show you because we want to use this to help us create and start our plan a little bit better. And I'm just talking through it. So how many of you have already started your plan for this year? Like you already have it open in the module. If you have not, it's okay. When are they due?
October 15th.
October 15th. What's the problem with that due date? Because the school year started August what? 1st for some of us? So one of the things that happens, and sometimes we have principals who don't begin until September because they haven't had a spot filled. So I understand this whole thing. But what would be a more responsible thing, it is October 15th because that's when the money starts. Because that's the fiscal year. But the school year doesn't align with that. So you guys, I want you to think about scheduling things, and we're going to talk about that throughout, where you have a plan that is ready by July. So what does that mean? And we're going to talk about that when we get there. So if you haven't done it yet this year, don't fret. We're going to get it. We're going to comply. We're going to get done what we need to get done. But we have to start thinking about getting it done sooner. So the first thing you need to do is, and that's the naming convention, if you're copying your old plan, which I think you guys know how to do, you copy, you can carry everything over. Last year when we did our beginning of the year, I had folks, and if you hadn't done it, I had folks go in and I said, from your first plan that's listed in the platform, that might have been, what, 2019? How long have we been doing this? 7 years maybe? Maybe 2018? From your first plan to now, how many have the same or similar critical initiatives? There was an ungodly amount of people who had the same critical initiatives. So 7 years later, why are we keeping an initiative that did not yield the results? So, if you need to keep those initiatives and now implement with fidelity, because that could be the problem, then we'll keep them. But for next year, I want you to consider something different. So you can copy all of the elements and carry them over, and you'll have a new name, 2025, 2026, whatever your school name is, Continuous Improvement Plan. You will review all of the objectives, critical initiatives, intended outcomes, key measures, and activities, because some of them may not be relevant. This is your opportunity to make some modifications, even if you already have a plan in place for this year. After today, you have time from now until October to make some adjustments and make this more meaningful for yourself. You will determine what changes need to be made and what will be covered. Then at the end of this year, you will set timelines, which we're going to talk about, and benchmarks of things we want to do, and then we'll talk about how to establish dates and things for progress monitoring for yourselves, not from the state, and evaluating. Fair? So how do you do this? Well, you log in. I bookmark this site because I have to go here all the time, because we use this for ourselves as well. We have a plan, our strategic plan for our department and division. But you log in from the web page, knowing that this web page also has lots of other resources for you. But once you get in, if you look on the left, if you're not familiar, anybody new to the platform? You are. Do you have access to it?
You go back to the first.
I can't. Do you have access to the platform?
I do.
Okay. And we will be sharing this slide deck with you guys. You will be getting it. So you log in here, and on the left-hand side, you have those icons. And those icons, so principals, if you don't have a leadership team, you can invite folks to join with you, and they can take off some of the load. The first one is observations. You guys are required to do observations. What are they? The Elliott, the TOT, and if you have early learning, anybody have early learning? No, I was going to say you have the arrow as well. We finally put it in the platform. It took us a minute, but we have it. The second one is your diagnostics. Notice that it's almost like a target in the center. That helps you. Now, you're already required to complete diagnostics, are you not? Yes, the state of Alabama requires it. That's one of the subphases of our process already done. So when you have to do a comprehensive needs assessment on Title I diagnostic, of this, all those requirements, you've already done determining your current reality, which we're going to talk about in a second. The next one is the surveys. It's a scatter plot. And then the next one is your to-do list, and that is your strategies. So when you click on strategies, you're going to log in, you put your institution name. Now notice, once you put your institution name, there's going to be a thing here that says welcome and your name. Under this, when you click on this, there's a place that says resources. I'm going to refer to those resources later, but this is how you access them. So you put your information, and then you get there. Couple of things, these 3 lines on all of our modules are your admin menu. You can add users, so if you don't have a leadership team, you can add users here. If you click on My Plans, it'll list all the strategic, all your ACIPs for the last several years. If you manage users, you can add users. Now, if you don't want them messing with it, because you want to have somebody specific, yourself or someone else, do the typing, then you give them viewer access for your leadership team. So there's viewer, and then there's editor. So an editor can make edits. So if you have strategic theme leaders, like you have a person responsible to make sure that that theme is carried out, you can add them as an editor. Now, this In Focus guide, that's where you can download it. It takes you step by step. So if you don't know how to use a continuous improvement team or a leadership team, that helps you right there. Now, the next thing is we have some outputs. Are they the best outputs in the world? No. But they are here for you to use to help you communicate to various people at various times for different reasons. You've got your strategy map, which we will talk about, your annual improvement plan, which is different from your ACIP, which is the annual implementation plan. This one has all the details. And then there's a theory of action. When you scroll, the left-hand side is what we call a navigation pane. When you scroll all the way down, you're going to see a thing that says outputs. And then this is what comes up, and you can print out any of these things. And I'm going to show you how to use them as we go through. Already talked about all that. All right, so let's look at this 4-step process. How many of you have done exploring the future and creating your ACIP? Probably no one. Because when we started this 7 years ago, it became a requirement for schools around August and September. So what did everyone do? And I'm not criticizing, it's just the way it is. Everyone copied and pasted whatever platform or paperwork you were using before, copied and pasted your stuff into the new platform. Anybody remember doing that? Were they part of it? Now I want you to think differently. If you do this envisioning phase, and you may not have time this fall, but I want to invite you from this fall until March to start that process. Because if you do this with fidelity, you can create a 3-year, a 4-year, or a 5-year strategic plan with all the critical initiatives you will need for 1 year at a time without having to reinvent the wheel every year. And I'm going to show you how. So, we have to start thinking about the future. The other thing is, we use our current reality data to complete all of our needs assessments. What else do they have to do?
Diagnostics, the surveys.
All those things you're required to do, right? How many of you also have to do some kind of report with your superintendent, separate than those other things? Because yesterday's groups, they all had to do some kind of presentation to their superintendent, each school. I was like, well, it's all the same information. So for the different entities, you can use what you do on those to help you with everything else. But one thing we don't do, so when we get student performance data, when do we get that? The biggest achievement data? July. That's late. So, and as soon as we get it, there are students from April who have moved on. So this is past data. The attendance data is past data. The discipline's past data. So we say current reality, but that ain't current. It's as current as we can get it. So what we want to do is we also need to explore the future. We can't tell the future. If you can, let's talk. We can't tell the future, but we can explore it. Because we can't spend all of our time just filling gaps. Because sometimes the gaps for our students are so big that we also have to consider, for the older ones, especially middle school or higher, that they are closer to being in the community than they are to bringing up their reading level to a certain thing. So when we explore the future, we look for 2 things. 1, what future trends, and we'll talk about which ones and how to explore it, are going to affect the way we teach and learn. We could not have been ready for COVID. Because unless you were deep into the medical field, there were hints that something was coming, but we as a public did not know until it came. So there are outliers like that. But what are some things that are very intrusive to the way we teach? Something like COVID, big. What happens to us all the time? Weather events, hurricanes, floods, freezes, you name it. We have to be responsive to those types of closures. COVID was another reason for closure. Now, we were expected it was longer than most of our weather events, but that's okay. If we'd have had those in place, we could have adapted a little bit more readily. What else? Funding. We've just had a whole lot of changes in our federal and state governments, have we not? And that's it hasn't officially, well, it kind of has. But there's changes coming in the way you're funded, yeah? So we can be responsive and not reactive. These are the things that we have to worry about. And if we explore the future, we are a little bit more prepared than not. Whenever I was teaching, we knew for a long time, so before it was ACIP, what was it? What was the federal law? NCLB. We knew that law was coming for probably 5 years before it came. And I was a teacher at the time. But I'll tell you what, we all scrambled when it came. And I was like, no, we knew it was coming. Did we explore it enough to be prepared? Nope, we did not. What has been coming technologically for years? It has been in place for years. AI, ChatGPT. Did we prepare for it? Nope. We used our Alexas, we did voice to text, we did all of these things. Did we think about the ramifications as it evolved? No. So we have to spend time. But not only to look and explore the future for how it'll affect the way we facilitate teaching and learning, but we have to explore it because it is our responsibility to prepare our students for those things. We can't send them out into the world without some kind of way to problem solve or adapt or navigate those eventualities. And when we, and I'm guilty, taught middle school ELA, my primary focus was trying to get those kids' reading level up. And I had a 16-year-old sixth grader. Guess what happens in Louisiana at 16? You can quit. Do you think he cared about his reading level? No. Did I do anything to prepare him to navigate his future? No. I had him reading things on his Lexile level. He didn't care about that. He even told me he made more money than me. So, we have to think about what we are doing and how we're preparing our students for their future. So how do we do that? The first thing is we determine current reality. Every school that I've ever worked with, no matter if it's charter, public, non-public, micro schools, you do this already. You have to collect data and report on it, do you not? So we're going to stick with the data you already collect when we think about how we're going to measure improvement, okay? Because I don't want you to do extra work when you don't have to. So already, creating an ACIP is not extra. It's what we do. Because you already do this on your comprehensive needs assessment every year, yes? Then you're going to explore the future. How do you explore the future? You can explore the future. Cognia says 4 ways in their research, but I'm adding a 5th because I know things. Just because I think it's a good idea. They are that you conduct a pest analysis. P. P stands for political. And I don't just mean conservative or liberal. Political means any state, local, state, or federal legislative decisions that affect the way you facilitate teaching and learning. In terms of preparing students, I think when we think of the political trends, we already see a polarization. So if we want to prepare our students, we can't indoctrinate our own beliefs, but we can teach them to listen or argue a point and concede that people have different points of view. If we want to help stop that polarization. 2, that's P. E, economic. What economic trends are coming down the pipeline? Let's think of it of how we facilitate teaching and learning. How many of you have CTE programs? And do you incorporate businesses? What if those businesses leave? Do you just let go of your program? No. If you understand some of the economic trends locally, statewide, you can reach out, and in some cases, you can even strengthen that economy when you develop a partnership with them. And if you don't, I've experienced working with school systems where all of their businesses have gone. And so you still have a school and you still have a community, but you have nothing for the kids to do, and you have trouble finding teachers because they've all moved to other areas. So what came first, the business or the school? Both. Then think about economics for your students. What is the economy out there, and how are you going to prepare your students to navigate what is available to them locally, statewide, nationally, and nowadays internationally? Because we have lots of our graduates who might work for an international company, but because we have technology, they can do that. That's PE. S, social trends. I don't know about you guys, but my days as a young girl, we communicated very differently socially. And the preference of communication matters. So how does that affect the way you teach and learn? In your operations, you have to communicate to your stakeholders, yes? So you need to communicate to them in the manner they wish to be communicated. They don't always come to the school to listen. So how do you get information out there? Are they going to read a newsletter? Maybe. If it's long, probably not. So you have to understand those social trends. And then for students, why do we need to know those social trends for students? Because we have to help them be better communicators in all of those messages. Our students are digital natives, and you hear this all the time. But have you experienced an email from a student as a business owner? Probably not well constructed. So we have to teach them to communicate, if that's the source of communication, in a manner that is professional and puts them in a good light. If they have to start to engage. And that's not abrasive, I guess. Last one. Who knows what the T stands for? Technology. Time, but technology is moving so fast. We can explore future trends, but we can almost always be behind because the technology is advancing so quickly. But we go to schools to this day, and they're like, we have a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm like, but you know what they use it for? They have their textbooks on the computer. That doesn't help students manipulate technology to create a product, to produce something, to communicate. So we have to look at those future trends technologically so we can expose students to that. If you do, students can implement other skills based on the exposure that they have. They can't if they've never been exposed. Now that's 4. That's your PEST. There's one more. There's tons of research that goes on over and over and over about best educational practices. So my next one is the educational trends. Because if someone else is researching how to best connect with students, I want to know that. And that's a future trend that will help me tremendously. So if you haven't explored the future, during this school year, keep the plans that you have in place right now, but during this school year, schedule time to work with your leadership team on exploring the future and consider how that will affect what you do to facilitate teaching and learning, or what you need to do to prepare students for the future. Because your current reality is here, and I know that you have to have an academic goal. I know it. but that's not where you have to live. You can have an academic goal, this is where you are, but you see of all those future trends, which ones are the priority. When you synthesize the data, how are we going to close the gap of where we are and where we need to be? So we aren't just improving reading skills to be on a test, although that's how you're evaluated, which that's another whole soapbox. We are helping them to improve their reading skills to understand things in science, in social studies, in anything else. That's the goal, not just the score. We're not trying to improve math just because they can do things. We want them to apply it to make sense in understanding data, in measuring for construction, and looking at rates. My husband, who does not have a college degree, uses math more than I ever will. He's in the oil field, and he has to plug and abandon wells, and there's things about pressure and rotations and blah, 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 and he talks about it, and he can do those numbers in his head, and it sounds like he's speaking a foreign language to me. But he makes way more money than I do, because that's a skill that he has to use and apply. It's not, I don't know how he did on his test. He's the only high school graduate in his family, but when you synthesize the results, where are we and what do we need to prioritize? It is in that synthesization where your strategic themes rise to the surface. You might always have a reading and a math, but there's other goals that say, I need to focus on technological integration. I need to focus on engaging stakeholders because our students don't have the support they need. I need to focus on STEM because our economy says we've got all of these programs coming into our location. What's important is when you do all three of these sub-phases, at the end of envisioning, you've already got a long-range plan with clear buckets for learning, which we call strategic themes. In doing this exercise, you become much more responsive and less reactive. Those things won't change. So you might have those main areas of focus for 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. Longer than 5 years, don't do it. In fact, I would prefer a 3-year. Again, this is Nicole. Why? You might want to guess why you want a 3-year long-term plan as opposed to a 5. A lot can happen.
I think you give it time to show some results, but then you don't go so long that you waste time when you could.
I love that. A lot can happen, and you give enough time to show results. Anytime you start a new initiative, you need 3 years. Why? Year 1, you're trying something new. That's why we call it an initiative. You're initiating something. Year 2, you fix the bugs. What didn't work? Year 3, you embed those practices that work. And then that no longer becomes an improvement initiative because it's now an embedded engagement. But you don't go to 4 or 5. You could, but you don't go to 4 or 5 because once it's embedded, you can start something new. You're not spending too much time on it. The last thing is, at this phase, exploring the future and engagement of stakeholders is critical. And you only do this full phase once in the cycle. So, if I have a 3-year plan, I'm only going to explore the future in year 1. And I'm only going to deeply engage all of those stakeholders in year 1. I want to hear the multiple perspectives. And yes, put students on your plan. They're the ones being served. They have some ideas. When I do this with districts across the country, and they include students, inevitably, not only am I surprised, but all of the superintendents, and they're not scared to talk, by the way. We had as young as 5th grade. When they say, what are your thoughts on X? The students said, well, I believe a teacher can be much more successful in the way they teach if. And everybody just kind of looked at the student and they knew. They had ideas. Because we're starting now. So, if you are not going to do the full envisioning for the October 15th, then right now you have to decide, can I pull a leadership team together that a little bit at a time, each month, we start to do some of these activities so that when we get to June or July, when we get the scores, we're ready to go. Now, determine current reality has to happen every year. That's the only phase, let me come back, that happens, sub-phase that happens every year. But that's the requirement for you guys anyway. So now, how do we look at data? Also, when you include stakeholders in this data discussion, you bring that to envisioning. You don't determine the current reality data. You might assign this group attendance data, this group discipline, this group student performance, this group family engagement, whatever data you collect. And you share out and you hear the different perspectives. This is where you start your SWOT analysis, your strengths and your weaknesses, your strengths and your challenges. But data is neither good nor bad. So if you are in a CSI, a TSI or ATSI school, don't fret. It's not your fault. We just look at the data. The number, high, low, good, bad. The high-low is the analysis. The good-bad is the information. High, you tell me, high rates of mastery in ELA. Good or bad? Good. High rates of chronic absenteeism. Bad. See what I'm saying? It's that simple. But we are always surprised that there are so many parents or students or other stakeholders that don't understand this type of data analysis. So when they engage in it, it all starts to make sense and they can support the improvement work that you want to do. Then you have findings. Now, when we start, everybody in education, in my experience, starts with student performance data. Is that where you start? That's where I start. So, let's just say student performance in 3rd grade math drops. What are some decisions that you might make? That's only one source of data. I just want to talk about that in a minute. What would you do if you saw what are decisions that you have seen being made when student performance drops in math? You might look at, well, you're digging further, so good for you. Are the standards aligned to the curriculum, in the curriculum? Perfect.
Do the teachers teach the same?
Ooh, you guys are better than most. Good. Did the teachers teach? So you have to go do a little bit further investigation. But what we see is, oh, math dropped, we're going to hire a math coach. Well, it might not have been math coach worthy if the standards weren't aligned. It wasn't the problem of the teacher, and if the teachers weren't teaching it, then you just have to reset the expectation. Teachers teach that. Did you need a math coach? No. Or buy a textbook? No. Or purchase more materials. You have to use multiple sources of data to inform why the students performed the way they performed. And that's where the synthesis is. So our findings are we've got to improve math performance. But you don't make a decision until you have ample evidence that helps you to put in your plan the best way to address it. Otherwise, it's guesswork and you're wasting time and money, and you don't have either of those. Make sense?
We found that teacher absenteeism affected performance.
Exactly. So if you had just bought a textbook, would you have fixed the problem? No. Wasted time, wasted money. There has to be a different way to address. Now, that's an external factor that affects the way students teach and learn. So you might still have to have something because the state wants something. That's where we do the dance, because the state wants you to have something specific to math. That's fine, but it could be that instructional practice picks up, and part of that would be an activity you gotta come to school teacher, or you don't stay. All right, so I want you to think, we're just gonna have a discussion at your tables. You probably know your data forward and backwards, so even if you don't have access, I want you to pick one piece of data that you use in your ACIP right now. Just think about it. What do you know about it? You can summarize, we don't have to get into the nitty-gritty details. And what did you interpret from it in creating your plan for this year? And let's just stop there. So the first three bullets. Who would like to share, I'm gonna use my friend here. What is your name? Jackie doesn't know it, but he's gonna share with us. Okay, what is one key measure data that you guys used on your ACIP?
We focused on attendance. That was one of our biggest deficits the prior year. So with attendance, we saw a large decrease in our chronic absenteeism. Focused more on student recognitions, making sure that we celebrated those who had perfect attendance monthly. So not just at the end of every 9 weeks. We did student of the month, male and female students. But we also helped them count too for coming to school as far as at our high school. After 5 excused absence, they don't need credit for the course. So we make sure that them and their parents were aware of it.
So they focused on attendance. Question for you. Is attendance an external factor that affects teaching and learning, or is it teaching and learning direct? It's an external factor.
It can be inside because,
Oh, it could be inside.
yeah, because if our culture is so bad and children do not like coming to school and don't want to come to school because of what's going on in the school, then they're finding a way to stay home.
Exactly, but it's not, so if people, she's saying if the culture, is the school is so bad that they don't like coming to school because the culture is so bad of things going on, then no teaching and learning is gonna happen. So for him, for his school, they did several things. They rewarded attendance, they put consequences and held them accountable, that if you had more than 5 absences, you did not get credit for the course. In high school, that's critical. So I asked him, did your attendance improve? And the answer was,
Yes.
by how much?
52%.
52%. So here's my next question. Did student performance improve?
Not as much as we wanted to.
Not as much as we wanted to. Do you see why we need a 3-year plan? Because you fixed one of the issues, but now there's still something else. And maybe, and I'm just going to put forth some of the things that we know to be true. If this was the culture of the school, students missed some skills all along the way that they weren't going to perform super well. So now, if we've addressed attendance, we can change the critical initiative by re-examining our new current reality and still work towards improving performance. Yes? That's why we are hoping that you guys will start to consider a 3 to 5 year plan. Because the results of 1 year will inform the next one and help you be much more flexible and responsive. You don't flesh out all the details for all of your critical initiatives in year 1. You just flesh out the details for the critical initiatives that you want to prioritize. And that's what we're talking about next. So if you haven't explored the future, do you need to? Okay. District staff, you can help your folks at the school level to do this. If you have regular meetings, you might want to engage in some of that. And I think we have some links. So how do you explore the future? You can Google literal economic trends for such and such county. And the Better Business Bureau is going to come up and it's going to have some things. What are the future political trends, technological trends? Of course, you're going to pick a reliable source. They have lots of research organizations who actually publish this. So, when you do that, you look at the connections and the gaps to help improve culture. You close those gaps. You make the connections with the people. And I will tell you, perhaps more important than anything else, if you want to improve student performance, you have to improve relationships. Period. Relationships in your community, between and among everyone. Relationships of the teacher to the student, the students to the students, and the students to the content. When those relationships are improved, you will find when you analyze the strengths and weaknesses, you do those first two things of the SWOT analysis during the envisioning phase, you now know what you have to address. We're not at how yet. So the big ideas that rise to the surface become your strategic themes. I'm going to use this one for our example. This is what a strategic theme is. I know we have a one-to-one at our school. I know that in some classes it's integrated meaningfully. My 7th grade teacher, who is teaching mean, median, and mode, is helping students use Excel worksheets to put formulas in there that help them to figure out mean, median, and mode. It's a neat way to use technology and integrate it to what they already learned. But we still have a ways to go. So my strategic theme, based on all the stuff that's coming out, and socially, I found out, and economically, socially and economically, more businesses, if you didn't know this, retail businesses have greatly cut or reduced or eliminated advertising budget, like to do signs or commercials. What they are doing is they are paying people with a larger following in social media to sell their product for them. That changes the economy a bit. So, women especially, you cannot go through Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else is out there, without somebody saying, I just got this package in from Hilera, and this is how it fits, this is a size large, I'm normal. So we have now a personal relationship with someone who tells us how it fits. Where before we picked medium, large, or extra small and hoped that it fit us, right? Men, the same thing is happening for you name it. So I'm going to take my new strategic theme is technological integration. Now let's just say if I pick this as a strategic theme, am I going to forget about student performance in reading and math? No way. I ain't that crazy. I'm going to use this to my advantage and see how we can help students be prepared for the future and incorporate technology into all the reading and math classes. But I have to somehow explain to everyone else why at this point in time, because remember this is still part of the envisioning phase, so at this point in time, why is technological integration important to us? And we document that in our priority statement. A priority statement is just that, it's a statement. And I like to use an if-then. If we integrate technology and AI use meaningfully into classroom lessons, students will become more responsible digital citizens who adapt and utilize ever-changing technology. I'm letting someone know we want to make them ready. It's just a statement. So in this 3 years, that's why it is a priority for us. Now, before we go any further, part of the envisioning phase, it is time to review your purpose statements. That is your vision, your mission, and your beliefs. Do your vision, your mission, and beliefs support that priority statement? Oops. So let's say my vision statement says preparing students for their future. That's my vision statement. Does this align? Yes or no? Is this a good reason to prepare them for the future? Yes, it aligns. If I said to prepare students to be good readers, would this align? Probably not as closely. So whenever your vision and your mission is what guides everything you do. So don't put in your plan something that doesn't align to what you're hoping to accomplish. And if your vision, mission, and values, belief statements, whatever you call them, are too long, no one's going to ascribe to them. So, how does that drive your improvement work? And if it doesn't or hasn't in the past, then when you prepare for next year, it has to. Because that's where you're hoping to go. The mission is how you're going to get there, and the beliefs is what binds all of you together to have ownership in that work. In fact, on the belief statements, I showed potential candidates as teachers, here's what we believe at such and such school. What are your thoughts? If they said, oh, I disagree, they were not hired. I actually had an applicant that told me he hated students, he hated children. I was like, you're not getting it. He had like 6 master's degrees, but he hated children. I was like, later. All right, so here's some guidelines. Remember, you're the ones to get this slide deck. You don't have time today, but Cognia does say that you need to revisit, not necessarily revise, but revisit your purpose statements regularly. So if you are doing a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year cycle, this is the perfect time to revisit. And, if necessary, revise. So, yes?
I apologize. I know that we're way past the survey part, but is there a way to download a hard copy?
Of a survey?
Yes.
I'll show you that in just a minute. Absolutely. It's in that resources page where it says preview, like if you go to resources, I'll show you in a minute.
Okay.
So, your vision statement and your mission statement should not be longer than 30 words. And some of us have a vision statement that's 80 miles long. And if you actually peel it apart, you probably have all 3 of them in that one statement. So you can break them apart. But nobody's going to know what you stand for if it's too long, and no one's going to care. Just because they're not going to read it. Attention spans are not there. The belief statements, the examples are, we believe all students can learn. We believe in partnerships rather than dictatorships. I don't know. Whatever it is you say. But they're very brief. All right, now we have a long-range plan with our strategic themes. All right? How many buckets do we want to have? How many strategic themes? Anybody would guess what my favorite number is? 3 to 5. If you've seen me before, I'm going to always be 35. 3 to 5. I'm way past. All right. 3 to 5 is doable because sometimes, and I worked with a district in Alabama last year that had 15 critical initiatives. Holy moly. And they were so burnt out. I'm like, well, no wonder. You're not sleeping at night. So we have our 3 3 to 5 buckets, no more. Now, we are going to start to create the 1 year at a time ACIP. But first, we're going to do all of our critical initiatives for 3 years. So what happens in the planning phase? In the planning phase, for each strategic theme, we take that priority statement. Let me show you how easy it is. We go back. We take that priority statement and we turn it into an objective. And the objective starts with a verb. The objective should be written high level enough that it lasts the length of the plan. If you have a 3-year plan, your objective should be written high enough that it can take you 3 years to get there, right? So, let me show you how easy. All I'm doing in the objective is saying what I want to do or focus on in the next 3 years. If we do that, so I'm going to take that off. So in the next 3 years, we are going to, watch how easy, integrate technology and AI use meaningfully into classroom lessons, period. Can I do that for 3 years? Yes, because there's a lot involved. But we get so overzealous sometimes that we bite off more than we can chew. So now, in planning, I create that 3-year objective, and then I break that 3-year objective into smaller critical initiatives. And critical initiatives are for 1 year at a time. So what can I accomplish in 1 year? And what do you think my favorite number is going to be? 3 to 5. So for each strategic theme, you will have 3 to 5 critical initiatives. Are you going to do all 3 to 5 in 1 year? No. Because this is your 3-year plan. The next thing of identify outcomes, I will tell you, sometimes it's easier to do that first. Why? We did our current reality and we saw what our priority was. Sometimes it's easier to determine what we want to have happen first. But either way, it is easier to measure the outcomes than the actions. So, think about my objectives. Integrate technology. Can I prove that we have integrated technology? All day. I can show classroom observation data, I can show all of that. But all that effort means nothing if it didn't help us to accomplish something. If students were not responsible digital citizens, then we did not meet our outcome. And that's what I have to prove for accreditation, for our stakeholders to understand that we're actually making gains. And we see it all the time, especially into professional development. Our teachers develop professionally every second of every day. And sometimes we see nothing different in the classroom. I can prove they win, but nothing's changing. So we identify, what do we want to have happen? And it's the same thing. If we do this, we think this will happen. And so we're going to measure if it happened, not if we did it. Does that make sense? That gives you quantifiable, verifiable evidence that you've made growth and improvement. Now, to develop your annual plan, let's say you have 3 strategic themes and 3 critical initiatives for each one. How many critical initiatives is that? Total. 9. This gets everybody all the time. I laugh. I'm like, here's some practical math application. 9 critical initiatives. Do you want to do 9 critical initiatives? No, because remember when Dr. Williams asked those questions, some of us go to work in the day and we want to just survive. We have work to do. We can't always be focused on all this improvement stuff and not do what we were being there to do. Build the relationships, discipline students, help them to be better people, working with our teachers who are tired or frustrated. There's things that we have to do, but this can help us to focus our efforts on things that matter to bring us to the next level. So to develop the annual plan, out of those 9 critical initiatives, guess how many I'm going to use for the first year's ACIP? 3 to 5. You guys are good. I'm just going to pick 3 to 5. I'm going to make, because when you start to break down a critical initiative, you realize how many activities are involved in that sucker. Because when you say provide professional development, there's a whole lot of things that go with that. And that is, the last thing is you show that strategy map to everyone else. So here's what's important. Again, you're going to have a copy of this slide deck. You can, now we haven't talked about key measures. So if I provide professional development, what do I want my outcome to be? Yes, and what does that usually mean? Improve teacher capacity or teacher ability to perform. But you know what people put as a key measure? Well, they do. They put in a sign sheet. I can prove all day that we did it. You were exactly right. But they also put improved student achievement. What's the problem with that? There is no direct correlation between professional learning and student achievement. I know a lot of people are shocked to hear that. But there's too many other factors that affect student performance. So if you're offering professional learning, it's to improve teacher performance. And you already have a measure for that, which is what? The TOT, the ATOT. You already have to do it. Now you can measure and see that teacher performance has improved. And teacher performance has an effect directly to student engagement. And if the students are more engaged, what could that affect? Chronic absenteeism, wanting to come to school, and if there is a direct correlation between student engagement and increased performance. So, when you pick a key measure, the first indicator might have been student performance, but you are going to measure that secondary, improved teacher capacity, and see if students maybe became more engaged. So, when you have 2 measures, you can verify that the action did what you wanted it to do. So now, here's what an objective looks like. So in year 1, I just took that, maybe changed a few words from that priority statement, now I have an objective. And this objective, I need 3 years to get this in. And the reason I'm saying, oh, you're not going to see it here. Integrate student use of software, programming, and AI. So I'm very general. So to that end, I get to a critical initiative. We became a Microsoft school. So I'm going to utilize Microsoft tools, including, it should say AI, I'm sorry, in accessing materials, solving problems, and creating projects. So for year 1, I'm going to do these things. And I probably won't do these things at every single level, because I'm going to make sure that at the kindergarten level, something happens. First grade, second grade, so that everybody in year 1 starts to utilize and grow their knowledge and use of Microsoft tools. Make sense? Is this one a year? Yes, it's a lot more specific. Now, do I need more than 1 year to make sure it's good? Probably. But I can at least least get everyone utilizing the tools to do this. So I can go from showing no one did it to every classroom did it. And why would I want to do this? So some intended outcomes is that there's meaningful integration of technology into classroom lessons, and that students' digital skills and use or application increase. That's what I want to prove happens. This is what I measure. Now, an activity would be to monitor that teachers are integrating it, but I want to measure if it was meaningful and if student skills improved. And you can have more than one intended outcome, or you can have one. Now, there might be 17 ways to measure this. How many measures should you have? At least 2 for each thing. Not more. I have some folks who have, like, we're going to measure this with 17 different things. You could, but you don't need it. You want to show that something improved, and you want to validate or verify it with the second piece of evidence. That's the triangulation piece. So now let's look at our key measures. How would I measure if there was meaningful integration? Classroom observation. You already did them. You have 2 ways. In the Elliott, it would be digital use of the digital environment. In the TOT, which environment would that be? I don't remember if it's essentials or learning. I'll have to look and see. But it's one of those environments that talks about preparing the students for the future. How would I, or how could I measure their digital use skills? This is where you might have to, unless your district has a tool that measures or are part of their curriculum that says what each student should be able to do technologically at every grade level, you might have to create a grade level digital use rubric. What do we want kindergartners to be able to do? What do we want first graders, second graders? So you have a rubric that shows that their capacity to do those things increases from one point to the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So when you think about building an implementation plan, if you don't have this, one of the activities would be to create that. Do you see why you don't need more than 3 critical initiatives every year? Because now you have other work to do. Now, here's where I want a volunteer. Who would like to volunteer their plan that we can show and give feedback on? We're all in this together, so if you're worried if it's good or not, it's okay. Tell me the name of your school and I'm going to go there. Or would you rather read it, not show it on the screen?
Lakewood Primary School.
Oh, I forgot, I can't. So, do you have access to your plan right now? No?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me what your objective is of one of your critical initiatives?
The objective is to improve school climate and culture by implementing monthly teacher and student engagement activities that foster collaboration and positive learning.
Okay, let's give them some feedback. Is that good enough for like 3 years? I say yes. Anybody disagree? Any other comments about the objective? All right, what is one of your critical initiatives?
Address specific academic and behavioral concerns utilizing the MTSS process.
Okay, let's think about that. So we're going to implement student academic concerns using MTSS. Does that align to improving climate and culture? Did you say academic? Did you say
And behavior.
Oh, and behavior, sorry. Does that align? Well, first of all, is that a year's worth? Yes, it is. Because maybe the MTSS process, which we might all have, is not functioning as beautifully as we'd like. So now we're going to make sure that it's implemented well. So The only time I would tell somebody, do not put utilize MTSS if it's already functioning in the building. What might change is how we utilize MTSS process to focus on specific needs. But in this case, we're good, because they're gonna focus on academics and behavior, which does contribute to climate and culture, all right? What's your intended outcome?
This is where things, this is why I volunteered, because this is where things really go right. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to say, but it says, ensure optimization, data-driven decision-making, progress monitoring, and support.
So first of all, that intended outcome starts with the verb. So that means that's something else we have to do. So in an intended outcome, we don't want to start with the verb. So what would, and I love how he said, I wasn't sure what they meant by this. When you write a plan, and you leave because you won the lottery, I should be able to come in as the new principal and see what I'm supposed to do and accomplish. So, what, do you want to give it a shot? How could you reword, you're going to address academics and behaviors and MTSS. What do you want to have happen? It's much easier than we think.
I wouldn't start with the verb, based on what you said. I just list those three things that they listed. Data, the intended outcomes are data-driven decision-making, progress monitoring, and support. And just
Yes, but you can be even more specific, because that's very vague. So if you are going to, first of all, utilize the MTSS process, what is the outcome for that? We're going to increase academics and decrease behavior issues. So rather than start with the verb, we're going to say improve student behavior. Improve with a D. Improve student behavior, increase student performance, and maybe more effective use of MTSS. You can use a statement or you can use a phrase, but that directly aligns to what he said he would do. And he can prove if student behavior improves. He can prove and give evidence that academics have increased. And he can prove through surveys or some other way that the MTSS use is much more efficient. Makes sense? Thank you for volunteering. So when you, from now to October 15th, you're going to go through each of yours and you're like, does that make sense? Is that how I'm supposed to measure? Can you read the critical initiative one more time?
address specific academic and behavior concerns utilizing the MTSS process.
Okay. I was going to say, sometimes we hear things like, utilize da-da-da-da-da to do da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So if you're saying, we're going to do this to do this, whatever comes after to is probably your intended outcome. So when you're reviewing, you can do a very quick and easy fix. And how will you measure that? Which you might have to fix that too. We'll see.
So there's more than the recommended number of measures.
Now wait, just for fun, how many measures are listed here?
6.
6. You might collect all of that, but do you really want to analyze 6 things for this one critical initiative? Okay, go ahead.
Key measures are PBIS expectations, Lakewood leaders, don't ask me about it, I'm only there in this district. Rock Your School Day, problem solving team, student achievement awards, and multi-tiered system support. Yes.
So that's just listing a whole bunch of related things, none of which are measured.
Can I say something about that? Because we probably all created this around the same time. When I was a principal and we first went through the process with IM, we didn't have the guidelines of 35. That would have been wonderful. Basically, what you were told was all the things that you did, so you could kind of choose from that. So it may not be their fault.
No, I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, and we're course correcting right now, but when you list all the things you did, those could have all been activities. Those would have been the activities and not the measures. So I want you to now start thinking about what's different and what's not, and you can see how you can be much more efficient. So, when it says like rock your what?
Rock your school day.
Rock your school day. So if you want to do these things, you might implement as an activity, rock your school day. Does that make sense? But when we measure, we just talked about that. Instead of listing all of that, there's really 3 measures we could use. Increased student performance, so student performance data. Increased or decreased behavioral incidents, so behavior data or discipline data, and then effective use of MTSS or efficient use, that might be surveys for the teachers. Now you guys are required, I'm going to say something about surveys. You are required to give surveys, are you not? And those surveys have a lot of things on them. You can use the survey data in its entirety. But if you have a specific initiative that is focused on increased climate and culture, for example, you will go through and you'll find the items that address that, and you can do an item analysis. 57%, thank you so much, of our students, this is the beginning of the year, believe their teachers care about them. At the end of the year, you've done all of these things, you've built relationships, you've done some activities. At the end of the year, 98% of the students feel strongly or strongly agree that their teachers care about them. You can do an item analysis. Does that make sense? When you have, and that's what people are looking for, teams are looking for in accreditation. It's not, we're going to give you feedback on your alignment of measuring growth and providing evidence of growth and improvement. We're not going to tell you how to do initiative. You do what you need to do, and we'll give you feedback on if it's kind of aligned and that sort of stuff. All right, any questions about that? Thank you for helping us. Does that make it a little clearer? So from now till October, you have the opportunity to make those adjustments. And if you have more than 5 critical initiatives on a strategic thing, what are you going to do? You're going to cull. Let me get some of those suckers out of there. Because you can't do that now. You have work to do. And I don't know why, I was here 7 years ago. I don't think we realized. I did the tour way back when. And the more I work with school districts, I'm like, wait, y'all are way overly ambitious. But we want to be ambitious, but we don't want to burn out. So we're going to think about that.
As we return and continue on with our beginning of the year training, ACIP training, a lot of what I talk about in this particular presentation has to do with the federal programs director's role on the ACIP team. So again, how many federal programs directors do we have? Left are the ones. You are going to be the one. So, in federal programs, you know, as you attend our trainings, you listen to, who was the lawyer that I was, Tiffany Kessler, thank you. So you always hear us talking about these 3 things, if you can see them. Reasonable, necessary, and allocable, right? How do you spend your federal dollars? Principals, just know you have to spend your dollars according to these regulations. Your purchase has to be reasonable. It has to be necessary. And it has to be allocable, meaning it serves the purpose of the grant for that portion of the grant. So, again, normally principals don't know this. It's usually the federal programs directors. And the federal programs directors have to rein in all those wonderful ideas principals come up with, all those creative notions principals have to improve their school, right? You come up with some off-the-wall stuff that you know is going to work. It's going to work. And unfortunately, what does the federal programs director say? Everybody knows that word, right? no. And the principal goes back to school mad, guess what she told me? She just doesn't like me, I'm telling you, because she looked at me in a real crazy way when she said no. I thought my federal programs director hated me, because I had ideas like, I'm not gonna talk about it. So, but the point is, when your federal programs director tells you no, now here she could probably say it in a better way, but it's because there are rules to follow in regards to these federal funds. And so, instead of saying no, federal programs directors, maybe you can just ask those principals with all these great ideas, how does this remove any barriers? How does taking a field trip on a cruise down this beautiful river remove learning barriers and support academic achievement? Well, kids are gonna have fun, but is fun going to help them pass that ACAP assessment, the ACT? Is it going to help them improve their reading scores? And I'm sure principals will do what? Kind of make it tie together. Well, see, yes, it will, because what they have to do is, and they'll try to, string it together and make it make sense. And then federal programs directors are going to say what? No. They try to be nice and ask you, how does this relate? But then you wanted to go in a different direction, so now they just have to be honest and say no. So please understand, my point with all of this is that principals, it's not just them hating you or being mean. They are responsible for managing these funds, these large budgets, and it has to relate to what the government says, the federal government says it has to relate to. So let's talk about, let me do this real quick. So just remember, when you're spending your dollars, it's another way to say no. You can say it's for academics, not aesthetics, right? Academics, not aesthetics. We've had ACIPs that wanted to pay a painter to come in, paint murals on the wall. Dr. Seuss, right? Elementary school, Dr. Seuss, all the books, the characters. We're studying Dr. Seuss. They're going to see these, and as they're walking down the hall to go to the lunchroom or the bathroom, they're going to see these characters, and they're going to remember, because one of the standards has to do with recall, and we can talk about it in the hallway. What are you going to say? No. But I saw this thing on TikTok where we get this seating, and we need new furniture because the kids need to be able to sit on these balls or sit on bikes, and they'll learn better.
I'm gonna argue that's climate culture.
Climate culture. I like that. But the answer still is what? No. No, I don't care how you tie it together. It's no. Academics, not aesthetics. Remember that. Academics, not aesthetics. And so as we're focusing on academics, not aesthetics, we're going to focus on our evidence-based interventions. Evidence-based interventions are what the government, federal government, is what ESSA says are those strategies, activities, or interventions that have a statistically significant outcome on student achievement. What does that mean? Statistically significant. What do you think of immediately when you hear that term, statistically significant? Research has been done, right? Not something off TikTok, not something off of the Today Show. It's research driven. And the outcome of that research shows that it actually works. It actually has been proven to work. So all federal dollars, whether it's Title I, Title II, Title III, school improvement, Title V, Title IX, it doesn't matter. Federal programs require the use of evidence-based interventions. And evidence-based interventions are rated either strong, moderate, promising, or likely. So, as you federal programs director, did I forget to tell you guys what another part of the reason why you're on the ACIP team? I failed to say that? I did. You have to approve the ACIPs. Lucky you. You have to approve these ACIPs. You are the superintendent's designee. And usually if it deals with federal dollars, who's going to be the superintendent's designee? Federal program director, you already know. So you have to go in there as you approve all these ACIPs. Hopefully you don't have that many schools in your system, like Mobile and Birmingham and Montgomery, 50, 60 schools. But you go in and approve these, and you make sure they have their evidence-based interventions so they can implement these strategies. So don't put an evidence-based intervention in that ACIP just because you know you have to have one there. It has to serve a purpose. Be purposeful. Now, the only difference in this is that likely rate. If you have CSI schools in your LEA, does anybody in here have CSI schools? No one? Oh, you? Oh. One of the 14 that we just named?
Oh, no, not that.
Okay. So if you have a CSI school, you cannot use the likely rate. Because the likely rate is, the vendor said it works, so I'm gonna try it. Now, you know vendors sell their soul to get you to spend money, right? So, CSI schools, because of their ranking, because of the issues that exist with academic achievement, they cannot use that likely rate, right? Likely rate is, hey, I know Nicole, Dr. Nicole Reeves is a principal in the next county over. Nicole, she implemented this. She spent a lot of money, but it works. She said it works at least. So are we gonna do what Nicole says? You gonna try it? Yeah, you gonna try it? No. No. Think about it. Go back to your mom, your grandmother. What does your grandmother say when you come home saying your friends are doing it? Right? If she gonna jump off the building, you gonna do it too? You don't know if it works. She says it, but she might not have the same population. She might not have the same problems. Probably doesn't have the same type of parents. So you don't know if it's gonna work for you. Congratulations to Dr. Nicole that it works for her, but let me figure out something else for me. So to help you find evidence-based interventions, we offer this list, and of course, once you get the slide deck, you will have access to these hyperlinks. And they offer, these are websites that you can go into and search for those evidence-based interventions that have those ratings, strong, moderate, promising, or likely. And you will be able to find what works, what research says. Our favorite, well, my favorite, is the first one, Evidence for ESSA, because it does provide so much information. It's very user-friendly. It identifies the study, the demographics, the outcome, if PD is needed, how much the PD will be, if they can come on site, if it's virtual. They give you so much information about this particular piece of intervention that you really won't have to go anywhere and search for something else. Now, I do ask that you do not go into any of these websites looking for what you already use, because you will be sadly disappointed. So go in with an open mind, looking for something new that will work with your demographics. And so as we went through and actually searched these websites for you, we found some that have those ratings. ALSDE. ALSDE on Evidence for ESSA has been rated and it has a promising rating. That's homegrown in Alabama, but it has been studied and proven to work. What Works Clearinghouse, if you have an EL population that you're trying to target, there's a dual language program that will support them, and that has a moderate rating. Sound partners. You can use this for two areas particularly, your struggling readers and EL, if you need to support both groups. And this, as you can see, they're in elementary schools, that's K1, both of them. Evidence-based interventions for reform to improve the graduation rate and chronic absenteeism. We found the early warning system in Alabama. Actually, it was studied and it works. The next generation high schools. You want to improve high schools so students are not just coming to school or not coming to school. You know how high school students can be. Changing your high school, your culture climate to increase your college and career readiness. This particular study, which you will have to read, offers very good advice and strategic steps to change your high school. And so, once you find your evidence-based intervention, you will, in your ACIP, put a hyperlink or cite your source in your ACIP. And citing your source does not involve MLA or APA style. It's just a simple hyperlink. You cut and paste that link to that web page that identifies the rating of the evidence-based intervention. That's all you have to do. And if you see at the bottom of this slide, you'll see there's a hyperlink there. There is a recording of none other than Dr. Nicole Reeves showing you how to put this and where to put this in your ACIP. Okay? So please make sure this is done, and those who have to approve ACIPs, make sure you look for this information. What time do you have? Good? Okay. So, team activity. Hopefully you're sitting with someone you can work with and communicate with. What we'd like you to do is to, and I'm just telling you to go to Evidence for ESSA, but you can go to any of these other websites. But for the sake of time, you can use this QR code to go to Evidence for ESSA or just type it in your search bar and find an area on your report card, your federal report card. Now, I know the latest one probably is not up, so I think it's just the latest one on our website is 2324. But find an area that needs improvement. Nothing is 100%. Not all things. So if there's an area, whether it's SPED, EL, reading, chronic absenteeism, college and career readiness, go to ESSA and find an evidence-based intervention that can support that. That can support that area and get the details from it. And we'll give you, how much time? About 5 minutes? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Because we want you guys to talk about this. We want you to figure out how you're going to begin using this intervention this year. So take the time to do a little research and find what will work for you.
So when you are using any of your federal program money, you can use those monies for these types of things. Now, I want to say a couple of things about that. First of all, if you have gone through an accreditation review recently, how many of you have? You haven't. You are going to get some recommendations for improvement. And on your report card, you have just seen some areas of challenges, right? If that is evidence enough for you to create a strategic theme, then that's fine. Or if you already created your strategic themes and then this information comes to you, where does that fit what is on the report card? Because you want to address that. That's your accountability. Or what's recommended to you from an engagement review, where does that fit under those strategic themes? Because then that is very specific. Someone else has done some analysis for you. And you can start to create your plans from that. That's number one. Number two, not There is no program in the world, so you guys just looked at your evidence. There's no program in the world that's going to make you great. It is how you implement that program. So if you're going to use money for it, use it as it was intended. I get all the time, well, that didn't work. I'm going to give you a real for instance. There was another state that used what Cognia gives you guys is tools. That's all we give you, and ideas and partnerships and help you to work through things. But there was a state that bought the student engagement surveys or used our student engagement surveys for the entire state because they wanted to see what student engagement looked like. After 3 years, because they heard, I'm not going to tell you what state it is, but after 3 years, they heard that you need 3 years to implement something. They said, thanks, we're not going to use your surveys anymore. Which is fine, if you want to choose not to do it. Because nothing changed, is what they told us. So I'm in this meeting with the State Department, and I said, well, what kind of strategies did you implement to improve student engagement? What? Administering a survey does not improve what happens. You get information and then you make a decision. So any of these programs that you buy, you have to actually do something if you want to see something different. So when you're creating your strategic themes, your objectives, your critical initiatives, you identify those outcomes, whatever the program is. You want to see this happen, and that's what you're going to measure. So whether you're paying for it or not is irrelevant. Once you do all of this work, here is one of those outputs that you guys can have. This is what we call a strategy map. What are the important elements you see here? What's at the top? Why do you think it's at the top? Because you're reminding every single person, this is where we're going, this is how we do it, and this is what we believe. And everything that we say underneath this is going to get us there. Notice, what do we have right here? Strategic themes. How many are there? 5. Are we in the 3 to 5? Yes. How many objectives for each theme? 1. You only need 1. So, I'm going to try one of these. This says staff stability. Do any of you need that? Yes. Because that's an external factor that affects teaching and learning when you can't keep a teacher in the classroom. So it says, and they all start with the verb, provide choice programs for professional development towards advanced certification programs to stabilize teaching staff. Is that 3 years worthy? Yes, because if they go to advanced certification, they usually, at least in Louisiana, they have 3 years to complete that certification. All right? 3, 4, or 5. Then they have 3 critical initiatives underneath. This is a lot of critical initiatives. We're not going to do this. This is an output that you print out and you tell your staff community. So if you're improving climate culture, you're like, this is where we're going in the next 3 years. It's 1 page. The parents don't need to know what tool, all this other kind of stuff. They want to know, what are you working on? And what are you going to do to get there? This is how they measure. You're going to measure it. And by telling them how you're going to measure, when you actually publish or communicate results, you can say, our data show that we've improved in this. And then they can say, man, this school is really doing stuff. That's what Cognia has evidence of. When you actually are able to provide evidence to stakeholders that you do see an improved culture and climate. So this is the strategy map. When you finish the planning phase and everything is put together, you have this. This is your 3 to 5 year plan. If you only have 3 strategic themes, these won't show. That is. okay? Now, to communicate internally and externally, which ones you're gonna focus on year one, we have another output that's called the improvement plan. And it only pulls out the critical initiatives that you're gonna work on in that year. That's it. So you can give this to teachers. How would I use this? I would print this out and give it to teachers specifically, because I can also communicate another way to parents. And I can say, teachers, these are our focus areas for this year. This is what we're gonna do, and this is how we're gonna measure it. So there's no one that can say, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, you did, because I told you. This is not the ACIP. We are now gonna create our ACIP. So once we identify those critical initiatives, we're gonna focus on year one. Here's where we go. Now, I have seen some beautifully written plans in my day. I even wrote some really pretty ones. But I was in the day when we were required to completely plan with all the activities for 5 years. We were required. So we had a plan that was 100-some pages long, and boy, was it pretty. We never lived it. Ever. But now, that's what makes implementation hard. Life gets in the way, things get in the way. So we want to focus and narrow our focus and create an implementation plan. So here we go. There's 3 sub-phases to this. Let's focus on the implementation plan. In the implementation plan, this is going to be the output. Notice how it gets much more detailed for each critical initiative. You only put in our platform, you put it in once, but these outputs will generate when you put the information in one time. Strategic theme, remind you foundationally, this is what we're working towards, this is the initiative. When you go back to your schools, you're going to look at each one and say, does it start with a verb? Is it 1 year's worth of work? You're going to look, and it's not on this output, look at your intended outcomes. Do our intended outcomes align? And do they not start with a verb? And do our measures align? Then you start listing all the activities you have to do. So this one says, provide professional development for personalized learning. Because we found out that our students are all over the place, especially if you're middle or high school and they're coming from different schools and none of them are at the same level. So we want to do a little bit more personalization. The first thing a school leader has to do, and you probably have already done it, in this activity, is collect data regarding teachers' current knowledge. Because what do teachers hate more than anything? You wasting their time. So if they don't have to start from ground zero, your professional development choice is going to be ground 5 and not 0. Right? So what do they need to know? Where are we going to start? Other decisions, and this is why you want to limit. Think about all the things that go into professional development. I'm about to make your head spin because this is my favorite part in the whole world. Current knowledge, teacher input, teacher analysis of data, because adult learning theory tells us they need to know why it's important. And if they don't have evidence and they're told something to do, they're not going to do it. Then, teacher choice and what type of professional learning happens. If someone comes in, if they go somewhere, if they do a book study, if they do a group, there's all these different choices you can make. Time to implement, set the expectations for implementation. I expect to see blah. Then they can meet that expectation. If you just say, okay, go do it, that's too vague for some of them. Then they need time to collaborate. If they've tried it, they need time to talk with their teachers. You see all these activities that make a difference? But if you create a professional development system in your school, then that can already be embedded behaviors that that's just the way you operate in the first place and it's already part of your schedule. If you don't have it, those are the types of activities you will put in to make sure that the teachers have what they need to implement personalized learning. And the last piece was to give feedback, because teachers want it. And you have a tool for that, the Elliott and the TOT. In addition, you might see in the platform that you need benchmarks and target dates. So the other part that makes implementation very hard is we ourselves as leaders don't know how to manage our time or put on our schedule the things we're supposed to focus on. So in the beginning, when we are creating our implementation plan, you'll notice on this one it says, the first benchmark, by the end of the first quarter, X will happen. What does that allow you to do? You know that at the end of the first quarter, I should see at least this. Then it says by the end of the second quarter, I should see this. Those benchmarks can be weekly, they can be daily, they can be monthly, they can be quarterly. I prefer, this is Nicole, quarterly. Why? Because I need time. So if I'm pulled away for a meeting that takes me out all day, I still have time in that quarter to make sure these things are happening. And it's a great time to check in, which I'll show you that in a second. These are logical. The benchmarks and target dates are just what do you, the benchmark means where should you be at this point, and the target date is by this time. When you do this too, you can take this, you can print that all out, and you can give it to the person. Notice it says persons responsible, teachers and administrators. I simply print this out and say, these are the things we're going to do. You have a little conversation. This is what we want to see. And if it's a curriculum coordinator, you're not giving them something different. It's probably within their role in the first place. You're giving them focus to do the job they're there to do. And you will see improved job satisfaction. I'm telling you, because now they're very clear. If I'm an instructional coach, this is what I'm working towards. Because instructional coach means a lot. But now I'm giving them focus to their work anyway. That's how we embed these plans into what happens. We're not doing extra, we're being focused. And then of course you have this to print out and give. This is your ACIP. Now you don't have to print it out. You can, some people like to have a hard copy, but your LEA folks, when they go to approve or give feedback, which they're going to start doing when? October 15th, they're going to give you feedback. So you have time from now till then to go make some adjustments. That's phase one. Phase two, you created the implementation plan. Now you're going to implement and you're going to monitor the progress. Before you monitor progress, you have to communicate. And to whom are you communicating? Yes. That's the same answer as who should be on a leadership team. Yes. Just communicate. You can use the outputs to communicate. Knowing the attention span of some of the parents of our school. I had a monthly newsletter, and I had a little corner, school improvement corner. I would do something that would say, last month we administered parent surveys and student surveys. Here's the data. I might show them a little graph or whatever, just so they know. And then at the last statement, we are going to use this data to inform our plan. I did a little bit each time I had a newsletter. We are now in the first quarter. This is what happened. Then you know, they know, you are working towards improvement. You're improving the climate culture, and at teacher meetings, which you probably already have on the schedule, you share the same information. Teachers, this is where we are. This is what we've done. Then it doesn't become buy-in, it becomes ownership. So here's what we recommend. If you're gonna monitor progress of an improvement plan, minimum, twice a year. I highly encourage at the end of each quarter. Because at the half-year mark, too much time has gone by to course correct. So if you bought a program that was no good, they promised you the moon, and you didn't even get a moonbeam. Way too cloudy. You're not going to keep using your time or money on something that didn't work. You can make some adjustments. Or you bought it, they promised you the moon, but none of the teachers are using it the way they're supposed to. You course correct. You change your activities to reset expectations and provide professional learning. Thank you. But you already have a practice in place. ALSDE says that you have to do a mid-year review. So the second quarter, after the second quarter, you already have this in part of your schedule. So technically, you're going to implement only one extra review point. Because at the end of the fourth quarter, you will evaluate. You will evaluate everything you can minus the student achievement data. Why? Because it doesn't come till July. So you can have everything ready. And if you monitor progress throughout the year with those key people on your leadership team who are kind of the persons responsible, whether you do it in an after-school meeting, a lunch meeting, a before-school meeting, however you do it, when you get to the end of year evaluation, those responsible parties come with their key measure data. That conversation is less than half a day. And in less than half a day, I'm going to show you how you already will have year 2 in the bucket, set and ready to go. That makes us way more efficient than trying to hurry up and put a plan together and use all of our time and not be available, or spend days trying to evaluate it. When we monitor progress in the platform itself, there's an opportunity for you, to write a little note. So when your LEA is monitoring with you, you can put, like in January, weekly PLC meetings occurring regularly, teachers participating in PB, daily group providing support. Like these are the activities. You're updating what's happening with the activities. We're on track. We're meeting our timeline, our benchmarks. Or you can say we're lagging, which is yellow. Or you can say we're at risk because nothing happened. And let me tell you this, do not be afraid. I had a superintendent who did not want his school staff to put at risk because he didn't want them to feel bad. I'm like, it is what it is. Because sometimes at risk doesn't mean you're failing. You're at risk because life happened. For example, we promised professional learning on X on this day. Hurricane wiped us out. We missed a week of school. Guess what we're not doing? Professional learning. Does that change what I'm doing? No, I'm going to be at risk because we weren't able to start it. But I might start incorporating some of that content in our PLC, so I have to regroup. Give me a minute. Make sense? You want to be flexible, honest, and responsive to what is happening around you. Now we get to evaluate. In our case, we are constantly asking ourselves as an organization, are we making an impact in schools? And if we're not, what do we need to change in our partnership? So an impact is different than just improvement. I can show student improvement, but if I haven't made an impact in their lives to be ready for the future, remember we talked about if we only focus on achievement scores. I know people walking around here that I graduated with who were perfect SAT or ACT scores. and cannot function in society. We have to make an impact on and look at the bigger picture. So how do we do this? And I will tell you this, notice this phrase. We see it all the time. I don't think there's any job or career that makes you more tired than an educator. I mean, even unless you're working in the hot sun 24/7. Makes you tired. But there's a fatigue in education that people cannot understand and will not understand. So everyone that I've ever met has good intentions. And if they didn't, because I've met a few of those too, I did not keep them on my staff. It's time for you to go. And I wasn't scared to make those decisions either. Everybody has good intentions, but good intentions are not enough. When our family, our people closest to us say, I didn't mean to hurt you, that wasn't my intention, well, boo, guess what? You did. We have to hold them accountable, like you were saying in your school. So, how do we evaluate? How many critical initiatives are you going to address every year? 3 to 5. So the most you're going to be doing this with is 5. You're going to look at the impact of each critical initiative. This is what we said we would do. This was our intended outcome. Do our measures give us evidence that we reached that intended outcome? Yes or no? And we do a summary for each of those critical initiatives. And maybe it's not just a yes or no. Maybe we got to a certain degree or level closer to that intended outcome, but maybe didn't quite reach it. That's okay too. We just summarize that the way it is. Then we judge, and I hate the word judge, the success of the overall plan. Because once again, let's say we're doing 3. And we met our intended outcome for 2 out of 3. If I was grading it, what would the grade be? A 67. Does anybody want a 67? No, but that's not how it works. When you judge the success of the overall plan, you communicate and articulate in another summary, we accomplished these intended outcomes. We met them, we were successful in these areas. We found challenges here because of X, and so that brings us to the last phase. We are going to do blank for next year. That's as easy as your evaluation is. And guess what? Do you have to go through all of this again for next year? No, why not? Because you got critical initiatives in the wing for year 2. So for year 2, you will copy and just carry over the ones that need to stay on, or bring the new ones up that you need to address. So year 1 of a cycle is going to be a lot of work, but year 2, 3, 4, or 5 should be like, we got this, unless you want to rework some of your critical initiatives. Because one of the things we have found is sometimes in 1 year of implementation, you received or achieved much more than you expected to, which negates some of the other critical initiatives you had planned. But your strategic themes and objectives don't have to change, just what you're going to do to get closer to that bigger goal changes. Make sense? So how do let me show you how you can do each critical initiative. You have another output. You take your leadership team, or the person's responsible, and I know you can't see it, but I'm just going to describe it. You put this up on a board, or they're all looking at it on their computers. Notice that this is framed by the mission and vision, because we're reminding that we're always working within that. We have our critical initiative that we said we would do. Go down 2 lines. This was our intended outcome. And these were our key measures. So the intended outcome for this one was all staff will gain knowledge necessary to transition into personalized learning instruction. Is this measurable? I'd say yes, because I used the word all. So I'm gonna caution you, is that the right thing? Because some folks may not. But I said all, so I have to prove or provide evidence that all staff has the knowledge. And if that's not very well written, because unless I know that in year 2, I'm gonna make sure that with that knowledge, they're gonna do something with it. But I can prove. So how did I say I would measure? Teacher surveys and classroom observations or teacher evaluations. So this data should show me that I got this accomplished or close to it. So this just helps to guide the conversation and not lose focus. Because what normally happens, and correct me if I'm wrong, we say, okay, this is what we said we were going to do, provide professional learning. Yeah, we provided it, but so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so never implemented anything. And they're absent. Who said teacher absentees earlier? They missed 25 days of school, so I couldn't even see if they did it or not. And we start talking about all of these things. You stay right here. Remember Will Smith and Hitch? This is where we stay. What do our data say? Yes or no? And if the data did not provide enough information, we either had the wrong key measure, which we can go and get another key measure. We can go find another tool that we already have that might have explained our success or lack of it. And we just create a summary with that information. Make sense? So our key measure data, for example, I'm going to go back to my friend who volunteered here that he said, chronic absenteeism. We improved chronic absenteeism in the hopes that it would improve student performance, but student performance hasn't grown. Further investigation reveals that students currently were not ready for the information at their grade level, so we should, with some adjustments, we should see some growth academically in year 2. That's all you say, because that guides your thoughts. Any questions on this? Now, when everything comes together, and I'm glad that it's not just LEA folks here, that it's principals too, so you can understand how this all works and comes together. And these are the people that can help.
The coordination of resources. It's a simple document, a couple of pages, but it is the school's comprehensive budget. So therefore, it does need to be completed. And it looks like this, a bunch of bright yellow boxes. You cannot miss it. It is actually in the Title I, correct me, Joe, the Title I for school, the Title I
school-wide diagnostic.
Yes, Title I school-wide diagnostic for ACIP. You will find a hyperlink in there if you go down to the coordination of resources. And you will pull up this. It may still say 24, 25, but that's okay. You can still pull it up. It's the exact same document. And this is what principals will fill out. How they're spending all of their dollars, state, local, and federal. The principals will fill out the number of teachers they have, the number of assistant principals, counselors, library media specialists. All of that will be included on this first page, which is this on the left-hand side. Then in the middle is the second page that identifies where you will put your summary. So for those of you who are Title I, you're just going to create or identify a summary of how you're spending your dollars. State, federal, and local. A quick summary. You don't need a whole lot of detail. And when you get carryover, I know that's a ways away, but you will still go back in here and change it because remember, it's live, right? It's a living document. So you'll go add your carryover and just create a summary of how that's done, how you're spending it. And if you have school improvement schools, they will complete a summary of how they're spending their school improvement dollars. So these are really the only sections that need to be completed on this comprehensive budget. The others have to do with Title II, Title III. Usually that money is kept at the district, so principals do not need to complete those sections unless for whatever reason your LEA decides to give it to the schools, which I seriously doubt they do. Here we go. And then federal programs directors, this goes for you too, specifically. Aligning the ACIP activities to the eGAP application. So the principals complete all their activities in the ACIP. They identify how they're going to improve student achievement, chronic absenteeism, whatever the case may be. They're going to identify here in their ACIP where the funding comes from, whether it's school improvement, Title I turnaround, a private donation, it doesn't matter. But principals are going to identify their fund source. They're going to identify how much of that fund source is going to be used to implement that activity, right? That initiative. So what do the federal programs directors have to do? You take that information from the ACIP and you put it in eGAP. This top screenshot is from an ACIP. This bottom screenshot is a budget narrative from eGAP. And that's really all you have to do. Now, I know the superintendent may want you to do other things with other federal funds, but in regards to how the principals have it outlined, because you did provide them with guidance on how to allocate their funds, right? What's reasonable, necessary, and allocable. So we're at the point now where all you do is take what they have and put it in the eGAP application. So when you have multiple schools with multiple ACIPs, the one thing we're going to say is you do not need to create a budget narrative for everything in their ACIP. You find what they have in common and you put it in one budget narrative. For example, this is a particular LEA that has multiple schools. I just selected 3 of their schools. And if you look on here, you'll see all 3 schools want to hire personnel. Different personnel, but it's personnel nonetheless, instructional personnel. One is retired teachers, another is parapros, and then an instructional specialist. They're all supporting instruction. So when you go to eGAP, you'll see this particular budget narrative includes all of those instructional specialists separated by school, separated by units and FTE. You do not need to create a separate budget narrative for everything. Find what's in common, put it in the budget narrative, identify it by school, and make your job a lot simpler than that. Okay? Then there's the program evaluation template. We updated it this year. We took out some of the information that you did not need to complete. And this is what it looks like. And so as the principals had to go and search for their intervention, you're going to have to complete this using that same information. So if a school chooses to spend some of its Title I dollars on Read 180, on that program evaluation template, that's what you're going to put as that evidence-based intervention. Read 180. Why did the principal choose Read 180? Well, because some of the data shows that these students are lacking foundation skills. Okay, so now what are you expecting to come out of this? Well, we're expecting to see a quarterly increase of 5% in these students. So this is what you're going to put in there. Another reason why it's important for you to be a part of that school team. Because you have to transfer that information into the documents that you need to provide federal programs and our programs. And then you'll identify what the actual outcome is or was. Now, if it didn't work, it didn't work. You can just simply say that. We planned to hire teachers, but the pool was not large enough, so we did not spend this money on hiring teachers. It's fine. We're not going to come and slap your hand or anything. It's just, we just need to know if it worked, if it did or if it didn't. And that's what you will upload in the related documents section of the eGAP application. So do you guys see how important it is to work with the principals on this, to provide guidance? Because really you're taking their information and putting it into what you have to do. It's a very important collaboration. Another reason why you're important is because you have to be a part of that monitoring process. Again, like I stated earlier, you'll be the ones approving the ACIPs, but you also have to be a part of the monitoring process. Because if you get to December and you find that you were not able to hire a teacher, the principal needs to know how much money he or she has to spend, and you can provide that information and say, okay, you have $50,000, now what do you want to do with it? It's not paying mural, not buying furniture, not going on the boat ride down here, right? But you have $50,000, what else can we do with it? So you work with them to figure it out. Or,
Just a quick thought, if you have a well-written plan and you don't need anything for that year, you can secure things for the next critical initiative, just FYI.
yes, that critical initiative that's in the wing that Nicole spoke of. You know you need to get to it. Well, now money has been freed up, so let's work toward that. And then the evaluation. Did we spend our money effectively? Did it work? Did we reach our goal? And if not, when you come into May and you realize something didn't work, money is still left, can we use it on a summer program? Can we use it to start that next initiative before the school year begins? What can we do with these remaining funds, this carryover? Because what we don't want to do is send money back where? Federal government. With the issues we have going on today in education, we don't want them to get anything back. Get your balances as close to zero as possible. That is our suggestion.
So all of this to say, and I'm going to go very quickly because we have 10 minutes left. All of this to say, this is not about something more to do. This is about using what you're already required to do to make it make sense and embed it in your day-to-day operation, your day-to-day work. This gives you guidance and focus on what you're trying to accomplish anyway. So how do you embed? You embed by what works already. If you have PLCs, you don't need a new structure. Use your PLC structure to focus on what your critical initiatives are. If you already have on your calendar time for teachers to collaborate or for time for students to produce something, use what's already working for you, but just focus it. If you have an instructional coach, give them focus. If you do hire a math specialist, give them focus. Then, all of these other things. These are things that help to embed and get you guys moving forward. And I already talked about aligning your strategic themes. If your district has a strategic plan, or the state has given you some areas to focus on, or an accreditation team, there's your strategic themes right there. Right now, I want you to just think very quickly, and we're going to take 1 minute for this. What do you already have in place that works for you? What is missing in what I shared today, and what are you going to do about it? And this time, and I use this very carefully, because one of the things in the Elliott, when we talk about allow people to share their backgrounds in Elliott A4, by earlier I said the one whose birthday is closest, you're sharing something about yourself that's personal without interrupting the lesson and giving a place to start. So now I'm saying, which one of you has the birthday closest to Christmas? You will start the conversation. Oh, if it's you again, you can pick someone else to start. 1 minute.
Yeah, you the closest to Christmas. When your birthday? November is you, Doc. You in the month. You in the month of Christmas. That's a no-brainer. It's you.
What do we already have in place? Okay. Miss being your patience.
She can't tell you to ask the question. Ask the
30 seconds.
We got our assessment, our benchmark assessment. And he don't have that. What we need to get in place is our survey.
Tell me something you heard at this table. What is already in place that you have to your advantage, that you can leverage? Anything? Anybody hear something that was good, that you already have something in place? I'm cracking up because I heard someone who's starting. All right, what is missing? Did anybody hear something interesting about what is missing? You don't have to tell your own story, you can tell someone else's.
We have an initiative to increase our English language learners' achievement and proficiency. And we threw a ton of money last year at teachers' aids, but that was not the component that was missing. People were not the missing piece. It was more intervention-based, evidence-based programs that teachers need to be trained on and implemented in order for that to go better.
I love that, because we see that all the time when we talk about teacher-to-student ratio. People are worried about there's too many students. In my day, on paper, teacher-to-student ratio was 21-1, and I had to laugh because I was 6th grade ELA at the time. I had 36, 37, and 39. 39 in a 2-hour class in ELA, which they hated. So it wasn't the amount of people in the room. It's about teacher effectiveness. So what was missing, based on this discussion, was we picked the wrong solution to fix a problem. Thank you for sharing. What are you going to do first? Anybody else heard something interesting? What are you going to do first? Or to change it?
We're going to look at our best evidence-based programs, like what we use, and so that will tell us if professional development is needed, how strong, all that kind of stuff.
I love that. They're going to look at the evidence-based programs. And so that might mean you have to call these specific vendors to see what type of professional development they offer, because some may not even offer it. You might buy a program without the assistance. All right. So now that you have a plan, we have a few reminders. So Joe, Dana, do you want to tell them about this? We're almost done. Forget me.
But yeah, I'll tell them about the calendar. Remember that there's a timing associated with the development of your ACIP and the submission of your ACIP. We all know that that's October 15th that it has to be submitted, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's when you start your ACIP. The goal when you're doing the envisioning phase is that you've already completed the evaluation phase. We have provided you in the presentation with a calendar when the different phases are to be done. June, July, August, September, phase 1, that's envisioning planning. Phase 2, October, November, December, implementation. And then mid-year review, phase 3. And then the closeout, which is the evaluation phase of your ACIP. Also, when you arrive, you received a handout on the table, hopefully you received it. What information or what is required to go into your ACIP if you're a Title I or non-Title I. Pretty simple, but I do want to point out a couple things. First and foremost, who is required to complete ACIPs in Alabama? Everybody. That's what she said. She said everybody. Everybody is required to complete an ACIP. The different components required to go in the ACIP may change or vary depending on your classification of schools. If you're federally identified as CSI, APSI, or TSI, there's a different diagnostic you must do in addition, not APSI and TSI, but if you're identified as CSI or CSIR, there's an additional diagnostic which is part of the needs assessment that must be completed, because your ACIP must address those indicator areas for report card accountability. If you're ATSI, TSI, I'm going to give y'all the heads up. Y'all, you can be a CSI school and still have an A on your report card. Because if you have a subpopulation that qualifies or doesn't meet the standards and falls into that 75th percentile of the bottom 5% of the schools for a subpopulation report card, they will qualify as CSI after that 3-year identification. We currently have 14 schools in Alabama for the subpopulation of students with disabilities that all exceeded what that bottom 5% was, with the exception of the subpopulation. And I know of at least one of those that failed to show gains that could be CSIR status, which is the highest level of federal identification, because they didn't improve with that subpopulation. In your ACIP, if you're ATSI or TSI, you must address that subpopulation deficit. What are you doing above and beyond for that subpopulation than you are with all students? That must be addressed. If you're CSI, there's an accountability component also where school improvement has to approve your ACIP. If you're any other classification or identification, it is up to the LEA to work with and approve your ACIP.
All right. So please know that in the mid-year review, we are going to be around the state again. These are the dates and the places for those, if you would like to see and join us for those. And then at the end of the year as well, when we talk about evaluating and then creating a plan for the next year. This is going out to you. Also, we're kind of at the end, so if you have questions, I'm going to encourage you to email us. All of our contact information is there. If I'm on the road a lot, but when I do answer emails, if you want me to just kind of review or ask my opinion, does this align, I'll be happy to help with that, because if it makes you better planners, then that's what I'm here for. We would like for you to complete a survey about today. It's about the content that you receive and about us as facilitators, because this does help us to improve and make sure you get what you need in the coming ones. In the rest of this, we're at the end of time. So in the rest of this, there are places that you can go for additional resources, and that will be shared with you. So that shows our ALSDE page, that shows our Padlet, that shows all kinds of things that you can go to help you.
And one more quick thing, re-identification for federally identified schools, which is CSI, ATSI, and TSI, is going to take place in November this year. So that re-identification comes. But if you are any school in Alabama, the Office of School Improvement doesn't simply support those federally identified schools. We support any school district and any school in the state of Alabama. Please reach out to me. My email was on that previous slide. We're willing to help in any capacity.
I do wish you all the best in this new school year. As you wrap up this, you are free to go. Please enjoy your afternoon, and thanks for your attention and your time today, and best of luck.